You've probably heard the United States called the land of opportunity, right? But what happens when that opportunity suddenly comes with a six-figure price tag? Well, that's exactly the question at the heart of a massive legal battle that has nearly half the country suing its own government. Today, we're going to break down this incredible story of division, power, and what it all means for the future of America's workforce.
So, is the United States literally breaking apart from the inside? I mean, that's a huge question, right? But the fact that people are even asking it points to a really deep and growing fracture in the American system. We're witnessing a challenge to the very idea of a united state, and it's all playing out in a very real, very public way.
And get this, we're not talking about 1 or 2 states being unhappy. We're talking about 20 states. That's almost half the country joining forces to take their own national government to court. This is a legal rebellion on a scale we really haven't seen in modern American history, and it could change everything, from the tech you use to the healthcare available in rural towns.
All right, so what could possibly push so many states to do something this drastic? What is this big fight really all about, and why is it all coming to a head right now?
It's like a team suing itself. I mean, think about that for a second. That really hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? The American system is built on this idea of federalism, a partnership between the states and the national government. But this lawsuit shows just how broken that partnership has become.
Believe it or not, this entire massive showdown, with almost half the country involved, isn't about some huge, complex issue. It all boils down to stopping one single policy, a policy that has a direct impact on the people who power America's most important and innovative industries. And here it is. The policy is a gigantic fee increase for something called the H1B visa, a critical way for the U.S. to hire foreign talent. And we're not talking about a small price hike here. The fee would jump from, a few $1,000s all the way up to $100,000 for one person.
Yeah, $100,000. Just let that sink in. Per worker. This isn't just a fee, The states are basically saying it's a giant economic wall. This single number is the spark that lit the fuse on this legal rebellion, and it's forcing a huge national conversation about the value of global talent.
Okay, so what is this H-1B visa anyway? Why is it so important that messing with it could cause this kind of massive reaction? To really get the stakes here, we need to look at who actually relies on it.
Well, to put it simply, the H-1B visa is basically America's bridge to the world's top talent. When there's a shortage of people with very specific, high-level skills at home, this is how companies, universities, and even hospitals can bring in the best from around the globe.
And look, this is not just about Silicon Valley wanting more programmers. We're talking about the doctors who work in rural hospitals where it's hard to find staff. We're talking about university professors, scientific researchers. These are people in absolutely critical jobs across the entire country.
And the system is already super competitive. There's a hard cap every year. Only about 85,000 of these visas are available. So many people apply that they literally have to use a lottery to pick who gets one. So for an employer, getting one of these is already like winning the lottery. It's an incredibly precious resource.
Okay, so we've got this super important, super competitive visa system. Now let's get into the actual legal fight. What exactly are the states arguing, and what's the government's defense for making such a huge change?
This really breaks it down perfectly. You've got two totally different stories here. On one side, the states are yelling about their essential services being crippled, a potential operational collapse. But the federal government says, hey, hold on. This is about protecting American jobs and making sure companies are really serious about who they're hiring from abroad.
And the states aren't just saying this is a bad policy. They're saying it's straight up illegal. Their whole case really comes down to 3 big things. First, they argue the government doesn't even have the power to set a fee this high without Congress signing off. Second, they say the whole process was rushed without letting the public weigh in, which is against the rules. And third, the big one, the cost is so high it basically builds an economic wall that will gut their public hospitals and universities.
But you have to wonder, what if this whole fight isn't really just about a visa fee? What if it's a symptom of something much bigger, something deeper going on in the American political system? This legal battle is putting that whole system to the test.
Yeah, this whole thing didn't just pop up overnight. It's been building for years. You've got this growing mistrust between the states and the federal government. You've got intense polarization where everything becomes an us versus them battle. And when politicians can't talk it out, what happens? They take it to court. The courts have become the new political battlefield.
So really, at its core, this whole case is a huge test for America's federalist system. That whole idea of balancing power between the states and the national government. It's designed to be a partnership, right? A check and balance? But when it turns into an all-out tug-of-war,
You have to wonder if the whole thing might just snap.
All right, so this internal American fight, it isn't happening in a bubble. It's sending ripples all across the globe. And believe me, the rest of the world is paying very close attention. Think about it. If the US gets too expensive or just too unpredictable for the world's best and brightest, they're not just going to give up. They're going to go somewhere else. And as you can see here, countries like Canada and places all over Europe are rolling out the welcome mat. This US policy could literally push top talent right into their arms.
And this isn't just about individual people either. Big global companies, they hate uncertainty. If U.S. policy can just flip on a dime like this, they might think twice about building their next big research center in the U.S. And that could slowly, but surely, chip away at America's reputation as the world's hub for innovation.
When it's all said and done, the court's decision is going to send a huge signal to the rest of the world. Is America still open for business, or is it choosing to pull up the drawbridge and go down a more closed-off path?
And that really leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? Is this policy really about protecting domestic jobs, like the government claims, or is it a wall that, in an attempt to protect the present, ends up locking out the innovation, the services, and the talent that are going to define the future? The courts will decide the legal part, sure, but the answer to that question, well, that's what's going to shape America for decades to come.